This is a platform that's only been around for less than 10 years, which is kind of crazy because it is really the monster and the platform that everybody is using and that everybody is using for marketing. Facebook, unfortunately to say, I mean, it's been plateauing for the last 2 years. It hasn't really gained a lot of traction the last 2 years. It's still Facebook, it's always going to be a thing. It's just the demographic of Facebook has a much older age range than Instagram, and depending on what kind of product you're trying to sell or who your audience is, one platform is definitely better than the other.
I think it's also pay to play, just to a certain extent.
It is, but you know, as a small brand, like there's ways around it. If you know how to target your audience correctly and you work with smaller micro influencers who believe in your product and have like a very high engagement rate, then there's ways to work around it without spending $5,000 on each sponsored post.
It's just a lot more effort to sort of get your message out there.
100%. You I mean, it's just like everything else with a small company. You have to be crafty and creative. You can't, and that oftentimes makes for better material and better content because you have to use your creative muscle instead of just money.
Put some out there.
Yeah, exactly. So the short answer to the question, do I have to if you're a business? Yes. I mean, there's no way around it. You can't not do it. 25 million business accounts. So, all of those people are doing it. If you're not as a business, then, you're already a step behind. That doesn't mean it's too late to do it now. If you get on Instagram and you do it the right way, it's never too late. But that statistic, over 1 billion users, that's 1/10 of the world's population uses Instagram. So, I mean, it's such an easy way to get exposure for free. Like I said before, Facebook is slowly plateauing. I make the joke, our company makes the joke that Facebook's dying. It's not dying, it's just plateauing. And this graph shows the average age of people that are using Instagram. As you can see, it's almost 70% of people between the ages of 18 and 34. So it's almost the reverse with Facebook. The average age on Facebook is now dominantly 35 and above. So it's like I said, depending on what product you're trying to sell and what your audience is, that should kind of determine which platform you favor in doing your sponsored posts or whatnot. It is the fastest growing media platform. In 2016, they introduced stories, which really kind of changed the game for Instagram because I think everybody used to post, everything that was going on in their life on Instagram. And then when stories came to be, that was like an easy way to post something that would disappear within 24 hours in live time. It kind of, it creates a different vibe to the platform. It also is the reason that Snapchat has gone down 82% of what it was before Instagram started the stories on the application. Most Instagrammers have at least a bit of a disposable income. Obviously $50,000 a year in a place like New York or Los Angeles is nothing, but there is a bit of a disposable income in its followers, and 72% of users have bought a product they saw. Like Matt was saying, you really have to be crafty when you are a small brand when it comes to sponsored posts. Obviously, like if you're a spirits brand and you pay for a post to be an ad and be sponsored, and you're broadcasting that post in all 50 states, but you only have distribution in 5 states, that's a waste of money. They make it very easy on the platform for you to pick specific markets that you want that ad to pop up in, so you're not wasting your money when you're doing that. There's also algorithms that we'll talk about in a bit that are very smart, and I mean, last year around Christmas time, it showed me a bag that was like a tote bag with a little spigot on it, where you put your bladder of wine in there to go to the beach or rum. Very cool. And I bought 5 of those for Christmas presents because of an ad that popped up on my Instagram. I don't know if that's Instagram telling me I'm an alcoholic or what, but It was successful, and I bought a bunch of Christmas presents. So the algorithms are pretty smart. So, as I said, when stories kind of came into place, the main grid of Instagram became very important. It's like meeting a person in, you know, for the first time, your first impression of a person. If they're messy and all over the place, and I know we all have those friends that we still continue to hang out with, but the first time you met them, maybe you didn't know that you'd hang out with them so much, and are, you know, you don't know what they're trying to say. They're kind of all over the place. There's no clear message. You might not go hang out with them again. Same can be said for your Instagram feed or grid. The first time, you know, you happen across a picture and you go to somebody's profile page, if it's messy and unstructured and you don't know what they're trying to say and there's no cohesiveness to it, you're probably not going to press that follow button. You don't care what they have to say next. You don't care what that brand has to say next cohesively, because you don't know what they're trying to tell you. You have to be as specific as possible. You want to see, you need to give them a reason to follow you and want to see what they have next. Obviously, like with 10 billion users, it's a large sea. It's a big pond, and the more specific you are with your message, the smaller that pond gets. So pick your message, make sure it's clear, stick to the same few subjects, and you know, sometimes there might be a picture on my own personal day, my own personal feed. I have a Cocker Spaniel, and I post way too many photos of her, and I know I shouldn't, and it's not good for my consistency of my theme, but I can't help it. But with the brands that I assist on branding for, we have to stick to a very tight, specific message. Otherwise, people will get distracted and they won't have a reason to follow you anymore. They need to know what's coming next, and they look forward to it for a specific reason. We're going to look at some examples of feeds that kind of show exactly what I just said. They're not all cocktail related, but most are. As you can see here, Ty French is a photographer and a creative content creator who did this whole feed for Pride Month, which was super interesting, and color, you know, based on color, and has the same filter in every post. Most of these photos are professional. You don't need to be a professional photographer or have a professional camera, but there are some things you can do to, you know, if you have an iPhone is a pretty spectacular camera. And if you have a newer iPhone with portrait mode on it, like, you can make a picture look pretty spectacular and professional. So, you know, aside from that, this is just a little photography hack. I generally like to make sure that I'm using natural light. I know a lot of us go into bars late at night and we're using, you know, not natural light. Natural light is very important and will make such a better photo. Beautiful. You guys did such a good job with this. They're perfect. When you guys get these cocktails, I don't have a slide about the cocktail, but I will say if there's time at the end of the seminar, I would say snap a photo of this cocktail, and if there's time, I'm going to mirror my phone to the screen and we can kind of go through editing the photo together on some apps that I'm going to suggest. So if you want to take a photo before, we'll go, then drink it, then at the end, maybe we'll edit a photo together depending on time. So the second one up there, Death & Co., I'm sure everybody here is familiar with Death & Co. They have a very consistent vibe through all of their photos, which to me is you know, it's sexy and moody and dark, and I love it. What they're able to do cohesively, which is very interesting, is they use a bunch of different photographers, and a lot of these photographers have very stylized, they have a very stylized way that is very recognizable, yet they're able to cohesively blend them together so that it all looks like one constant theme, and they, you know, even though the photographers have their own style. The third one is one of the brands that I manage, which is the coconut liqueur, which is in the cocktail that you guys have. The cocktail you have is, they call it Asia Sweet Cocoa. It's vodka, coconut liqueur, meaning a coconut. It is a Jafar banana and a little lime juice. And then there's edible glitter on top because this is an Instagram seminar, and if you put glitter, edible glitter on cocktails, people will take pictures of them. And that is the point when we are talking about getting, essentially, if all of you were to take a picture of this cocktail and post it on Instagram, you would be giving me free marketing and free advertising. So that's the tool that Instagram can provide for you. On that theme, that Mahina Cocoa is a very specific, it's very pink, it's very bright, it has to do with the ocean. It's a liqueur from Martinique, so it's very ocean driven, and we're trying to cater to a audience that's in their mid to late 20s, is looking to have looking for the beach, for the pool, a fun vibe. We're trying to keep it light and airy and fun, and it's a consistent flow. Next is a blogger, husband and wife, Truffles on the Rocks. They're from Canada. This is the most simple, easy feed that I've really seen. It's very consistent. They make cocktails and food dishes at their house, and then they take photos of them. They use the same props all the time, but it's just like very cohesive and very pretty. And they use gray and white and green are their main colors. They have a very consistent bright filter. And once in a while you see there's a photo of a scenic, breaks it up a little bit. It's a scenic view of the woman, the wife, like walking on the street, but it's still the same colors as the props they use in their food. So it all gets tied together nicely. And then the last one, Arsenic and Lace, is Natalie Jacobs. She's a bartender from New Jersey. She has built this adorable apartment in her home for herself that's like bright and colorful. And her cocktails are also bright and colorful, and everything goes together really nicely. She also has a very specific style. So she is she dresses like Western vibes, always has a cowboy hat on. And so she has a very specific niche, like bright colors, Western vibe, and she also is an interior decorator, does her apartment to match her cocktails. Like it's very specific, and so she's very successful. There's one I don't have on here called Drinking with Chickens. I don't know if there's anything that could be more specific than that. She's got pet chickens and she poses them with cocktails. So like you want to see what her chickens are going to do next with their cocktails. You need to have a theme and a vibe and like a kitschy thing in order to get people to see what you do next. Do you guys kind of see that? There's like a theme and a vibe, and the color scheme is like very similar. Sometimes I want to post a picture on my own feed that doesn't belong in my feed, and then I have to make that decision. Like, do I want to like go down a different path and maybe we go a different direction, or do I want to stay consistent? Sometimes it's not worth it because you confuse your fans. So this is where I'd say if you want to play along at the end, I would tell you to download Snapseed and VSCO now. I will maybe edit. I should probably take a picture of this cocktail so we can edit it at the end.
Is the mini coconut edible?
The mini coconuts, yeah, they are a tree nut from Chile called a coquito. They are totally edible and they taste like coconuts.
Amazing.
So these are a couple apps that I can't live without. As you can see here, and like I said, yes, professional photography shoots are great, but that's not realistic all the time. And as people like us that visit bars frequently and have these wonderful cameras on us all the time, why not use them? So that first picture on the left, this is from an outrageous, amazing bar in San Diego called Morning Glory. You can see on the left, that's the photo I took with my iPhone, and then on the right, that is how I edited on my phone. So I had the pant leg of my friend, because this was taken on the table, that I just highlighted. Snapseed is a great app because you can highlight a certain section, you can select a certain area of a photo, and you can darken it or lighten it or make the contrast higher, saturation higher. So I highlighted that area of that person's pant leg and I made it darker so it looks like it's black on the side. And then the same thing I did with the cocktail. I highlighted that area of the cocktail and then I made the saturation higher so that it was blue, more blue. Did the same thing with the letters, highlighted the letters and made the contrast higher so that it was more pronounced. And then what I usually do is I save that to my camera roll and then I open VSCO. And VSCO has a bunch of different filters that are great. They have a ton of them. Everybody will have their own style, but what I will say is make sure you stick to 1 or 2 filters. You don't want to constantly like change your filters up, or it's going to change the vibe of your feed overall. So I don't remember exactly which filter I used with this, but I will tell you with what one of our feeds, for example, on our Spirit Bomb Instagram, I use a filter called C1, and then you can pick how much of the filter you want. Do you want full one? It's on a scale of 1 to 10. So you can pick if you want it between 1 and 10. I usually put it all the way up to 9, so 9 out of 10. And then I usually put a 8 on the vignette. So the vignette will kind of make your focus go to the center of the photo and darken the edges so that the center of the photo is highlighted. Then I'll raise or lower the shadows and the highlights depending on the light. I usually raise the saturation to 1, raise the temperature to 1, and I make sure it's consistent like that. All of those adjustments on every single photo that I do, so that feed looks consistent. You don't want to make it not look like one thing doesn't go with the rest. Preview is an app that allows you, because this is quite important, it allows you to put all of your photos, kind of schedule them in advance, but see what they are going to look like in the feed. You can move them around like tiles so that you can see what looks good next to each other, so you actually have a plan and you're not just posting in real time. On all of our brand accounts, I don't post in real time ever on Instagram. On my personal account, that's not my priority, so I don't always plan in advance, but I really suggest, it makes your life much easier if you can see in advance exactly how things are going to work. Or even if you can't get that organized to do that, have a philosophy, have a method of madness. So post a picture of your face and then a picture of a scenic view, or make sure you're really mixing it up. So every 3 pictures there's a picture of your face. I know in some of our accounts I make sure there's every 3 photos there's a photo of a bottle. You don't want to post the same thing over and over again. You also don't want it to seem contrived. So for a brand, if you're posting a picture of a cocktail and a bottle every single time, you don't really give people something to look forward to. You have to keep it creative and interesting. So, is having 100,000 followers the best thing in the world? No. Brands are becoming more and more savvy to engagement over how many followers you have. This is the formula for engagement. Here, we're just gonna do one together. I have let's see, I'm gonna go to Clement. Please be on your phones during this, it won't offend me. I'm going to go to the second to last post we had, which was 1,054 likes and 9 comments. 1,054 likes plus 9 comments divided by 11,300 followers equals 0.094, which means we had a 9.4 engagement rate. That's very high. So that is a successful engagement rate. You want to look at, and you can also, add, if you want to do an overview of the last 8 posts that a brand did, and then add all those together and then divide it by 8. That'll give you kind of a more general overview average.
What's the scale for the engagement rate? 1 to 10, 1 to 100? You said 9 is high, but
So, I mean, in the world of social media, 1 is a low engagement rate, or less than 1. Between 1 and 3.5 is an average engagement rate. Between 3.5 and 6 is high, and above 6 is very high.
5.
Obviously, when if from a smaller base, if you have fewer fans and most of those people are people you actually know in real life, your engagement rate is going to be high. As you become a personality that has hundreds of thousands of followers, it's going to go down quite a bit because you don't actually know those people. But if you keep your content creative, then that engagement rate will stay high. I mean, if you see somebody that has 100,000, if you're a brand looking to collaborate with other people, with influencers, and you see that a brand has, or a influencer, a person has 100,000 followers and they're only getting like 30 likes per post, it's probably, it probably means that they are buying their followers or they have robots or whatnot. You want to see people actually liking their posts and commenting on them, engaging with them. Yes, Ben Jones?
So when people comment and then you comment back, does that also, like your own comments are also added into this equation?
Yes, that is, so you should, as we will get to in like 2 more slides, engagement isn't a one-way street, and it's very important that you're engaging with your audience all the time, and just even hitting that little heart icon on every person, that doesn't factor in your engagement rate, but it sends a tick to the algorithm on Facebook that people are engaging with your post. Yes?
As a brand, are there like stealth influencers? Because stealth influencer is kind of like, I don't know, a little bit of a death knell these days, right?
I mean, you just have to be very specific, and you have to do your research. There are companies and apps, unfortunately they're a bit expensive, that'll do that research for you. It's basically like digging into the analytics of somebody's profile to see if they have real followers and to see what their engagements are. If an influencer is proud of their engagement, they will share a snapshot of the analytics that are already provided on Instagram. That'll kind of show you where their followers are located and what percentage is male to female and what the age range is. Because if somebody is buying fake followers or using a company, they could have like a very weird base. Like they could have a base in some random country that doesn't make any sense based on where that person is located, and that usually is a red flag as well. You definitely have to do your research, which as a brand, if you're gonna put a bunch of money behind a person and spend a bunch of money on them, you want to do your research to make sure. A lot of brands are only picking like 3 to 10 influencers that they're using a year, so it's not something that you should just throw a little bit of money at a lot of people. You should consolidate your money and pick 3 people that absolutely make sense. You don't want to just like have Joe Schmo post one photo and hope it sticks to the wall. You have to like really think these things through. And there are companies that help you do that. They usually cost a bit of money, but they're out there. So speaking of algorithm, this is like a word that everyone dreads in the Instagram world, basically because they don't understand it. And nobody really understands it. It's a very secretive, algorithm that nobody knows exactly how it works. Up until 2016, and you may all remember this, it was all done chronologically. You could go on Instagram in the morning, and then you could go on in the evening and scroll back to all the people you followed and see. You could go back and have seen everything, and every one of your followers, you could have seen their posts up until you saw in the morning. So then you'd be like caught up. And then you put the app down. So that really wasn't good for Instagram. They needed a reason for you guys to continue to use the app after you were caught up. The same algorithm everybody hates is very similar to the algorithm on Spotify, which everyone loves because it shows you a playlist of of songs that it thinks you will like based on what you listen to. So it's a very smart app, or a very smart part of the app. Two of the things that are super helpful, that if you go on your Instagram and you hit that little magnifying glass, that will bring you to the Explore page. No two Explore pages are alike. This is my personal Explore page, which anybody that knows me, this is pretty spot on. Like I said, I have a Cocker Spaniel, and King Charles Cavaliers I'm obsessed with, so there's a video right there. We're all at Tales of Cocktails, so there's quite a few cocktail photos. I work for a company that has heavy ties to France, Martinique being a overseas department of France. So you see like these two girls that are kind of dressed French-like. I also follow like quite a few French influencers. And then at the bottom there's like a French lesson language video. I also have been taking French classes, so it's really pretty freaky how accurate this is. I also travel quite a bit for my job and follow some travel bloggers, so that there's like a beautiful scenic picture, and then the Game of Thrones, because I mean everybody. I was one of those people that was hooting and hollering over the Game of Thrones last season. So there you go. I mean, that's me in a nutshell right there. So it is pretty scary how accurate this Explore page is. Quite a few of those things, it'll show you things that it thinks you want to see, things that are interesting, it knows you will be interested in, and all of those things are relevant to me personally. What you want to do with the algorithm is get on that Explore page, so that people will hit that little magnifying glass and see your pictures and then go to your page and then follow you, whether it be, your personal brand or your business brand. Another helpful thing is hashtags. You can actually follow hashtags now. So this is the ImbibeGram hashtag. If you see at the top, there's a story for ImbibeGram. You can follow the hashtag. It'll come up in your feed, just like as if you were following a person, and then it'll recommend you other hashtags. There's always going to be a video at the top of it, which is a reason if you've seen IGTV. This is a helpful new additional feature to Instagram. It just was launched last year. So on IGTV, they're trying to, they already tapped into the benefits of Snapchat with stories. This is them, Instagram, trying to tap into YouTube. So you can upload videos onto here that are, I want to say, up to 10 minutes long. And then they'll show a 15-second clip in the Explore page and in the hashtag page. And then the photos under the video and the hashtag page are just photos that have recently been posted that have high engagement. And so those are also photos. That's a reason why you would want to use specific hashtags, because they would pop up on a page like this. And when you're using hashtags, you want to look for hashtags that don't have too much or too vague or have too big of an outreach, because if you're using a hashtag like cocktail, there's going to be millions of options and you're going to get lost in the shuffle. But if you use a hashtag like 4th of July cocktail, it's going to be very specific and you're more likely to pop up on one of these pages. So a couple other things that the algorithm looks for and you will be preferenced for is when you're scrolling through a feed, if you see something that's interesting, maybe it's like a carousel of multiple pictures, like a little photo album, or it's a video, or somebody has a really impressive, intense, thoughtful, long caption, and you read through the whole thing, Instagram sees when you stop on a post. So it sees when you stop on a post for a long period of time, and it takes note of that, and it will take note that that post is interesting and receiving attention and engagement. So it'll push it to the top of the algorithm. Instagram algorithm also identifies your friends and family. So if not necessarily, it's not that creepy, it doesn't go in your records and see who your friends and family are, but if there's certain people on the app that you're engaging with often, it will take note of that and it'll push those people to the top of your feed. You probably have noticed this if you look at your stories and you see the same 5 or 6 people are always on the top left corner when you open your stories. It's because those are the people that you engage with, that engage with you the most. So the algorithm is taking note of that and making sure that you see those people's feeds the most frequently. And then consistency is obviously something that is important. You posting a photo a day is probably best, but not necessary. I would say you want to post at least 3 or 4 photos a week if possible. But if you don't have a good photo to post and it doesn't make sense into your feed, it's better to not post at all than just post something that's bad quality and doesn't go with your vibe. Because if you get a bunch of photos that have a really high engagement rate and then you post something that's not interesting to your following, then you'll get pushed down to the bottom of that algorithm again. So you want to have consistent high engagement photos, even if that means not posting every single day. Engagement, this is what Ben was talking about earlier. Engagement is super important. You can't just post it and forget it. That is not a way to grow. Something that, there's certain apps that'll tell you when the best time to post is. There are better times to post than other times. Obviously you want to post when the majority of your following is awake and not asleep. But the most important time to post is when you have time to spend a half an hour on the app. If ideally, before you post, I would go through Instagram for 10 or 15 minutes and just comment on some things of your friends and get them looking that, oh, so-and-so commented on my photo, whatever. Then it gets attention on your profile before you even post. Then when you post the photo, there's already attention being given to you. Because in those first minutes after you post something on Instagram, if the engagement is high, you're going to continue to stay at the top of the feed in the algorithm. And it's super important if you post that photo and people are commenting, you comment right back to them. Because if you have a high engagement rate right out the gate, you're going to stay at the top of the feed. The algorithm is going to see that, and it's going to be like, this post literally the algorithm will be like, wow, this post is getting a lot of attention as soon as it was posted. It must be interesting. We're going to keep it at the top of the feed. So ideally, the best time to post is when you have time to spend a half an hour on Instagram. I mean, this may sound tedious, but if you're a brand, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, maybe you hire an assistant that just does the engagement part of this and just looks for certain hashtags and comments on photos that have the same hashtags that you're targeting, because it is very important. The engagement part of it is 50% of growing your following. You can't just post something and then walk away. And then the influencer. Like I said, this was a word I absolutely despised 2 years ago. Since I have learned to embrace the terminology and the word and realize it's absolutely the necessary evil. I am not a fan of some of the things that have happened because of the influencer, like massive ice cubes in cocktail coops, or a bunch of shit on the outside of the glass so you can't hold it without getting it all over your hands. As somebody that bartended for 15 years before becoming a brand ambassador, these things drive me absolutely nuts. To make a cocktail based on what it looks like over what it tastes like, there are definitely some misfortunes to this phenomenon. But we need to learn to embrace it because it can help all of us personally and business-wise. And it is marketing now. It is the future of marketing. So these are just a few different different influencers that partnered with Bombay Sapphire that I thought were interesting. Obviously, it's all the same campaign, but these influencers worked this product into their normal theme and vibe, and it doesn't look contrived. So it's the same thing as anybody that's been involved in acting. I live in Los Angeles, so I know quite a few of those people, including myself. A lot of commercials are cast with everyday looking people and not models, because you trust an everyday person to try and sell you a product on a commercial. You don't relate to a model for the most part. All of us, none of us, we're not going to trust a model that is freakishly perfect over somebody that is like your everyday Joe. We're more likely to trust the everyday Joe to sell us a product. Same can be true for the influencer. The reason influencer marketing is so successful is because these people already built a trust with their following. You already trust them. So if it's a relationship that makes sense and it's an influencer has a vibe that makes sense with your brand and they actually like your product, and then they naturally work it into the grid or their feed, and it doesn't seem contrived, that person is going to go buy that product. So that's why it is, like, to the gentleman back there's point, it is so important to do your research and to find the people that cohesively have that vibe that makes sense for your brand, because it's, you know, you're going to be able to tell if it doesn't fit, and people will do it. If you're a good influencer, you'll turn down the brands that don't make sense for you, but there's a lot of people out there that are just looking to make money. Whereas, and there are a lot of large influencers out there, but there's also a lot of micro influencers, which are under 100,000 followers, and they're not asking for as much money. They usually have a higher engagement rate. They're not as distracted, because a lot of these influencers that have over 100,000 followers are just asking for, they're taking as many deals as they can, they're making the money, they're not putting as much thought into the campaigns that are getting offered to them. Whereas the smaller micro influencers are, you know, they don't get as many opportunities, so they really do the research, they really put the time in. It's almost more beneficial. You get a higher return of investment, there's a higher engagement rate. And a figure that's really outstanding and like mind-blowing is that in 2020, influencer marketing or brands are projected to spend over $10 billion on influencer marketing. So marketing has entirely changed, and it is something that, you know, it's a necessary evil, like I said, but there's ways to get around it. You don't need to have a massive budget. You can work with some of these smaller influencers that have a higher engagement rate, and you can really be successful. There is kind of an average when it comes to how expensive they are. Obviously, if your engagement rate is high, it's going to be more expensive. But 1 penny per follower per post is kind of the going rate. But that really can go all over the place depending on if your engagement rate is super high. Usually you charge quite a bit more. If your engagement rate is low, that's basically in that 1 to 3.5%. That's kind of the going rate if your engagement rate is in that 1 to 3.5%. So this is a tool. Analytics is a tool that is available to everybody that has an Instagram business account. These things are ingrained in the app already. They're super easy to look at and kind of figure out exactly where you should go, what you should do, who you should be targeting. This shows our following around the country with one of our brands. In the middle, on the content, it'll tell you what your most successful posts were. So by looking at that, it looks like people really like to see photos of our bottles and of the scenic Martinique. So that kind of lets you know which direction you should go with your content and what people are responding well to. Same thing to be said with like location. You can see, you can see that like France has a high engagement rate, so maybe you want to really push sponsored posts in France. You can also see your reach, your impressions. Your reach is how many accounts are seeing you. Your impressions are how many times somebody is seeing your content. So you might somebody might see your content more than once. That's why your impressions are so much higher than the reach. But these are all tools that are ingrained in the app that you can see yourself, and you can, it just takes common sense to look at that and see what kind of content you need to further develop. And then I didn't put a slide for that, but you can also, if you have a business account, pick each post and look at the analytics for each individual post. Those analytics will tell you how many people came to your post through a hashtag that you used. So that's a good way to see what hashtags are working. Because sometimes, often hashtags work. Some hashtags work much better than others. Like I said, you don't want to have too vague of a hashtag. But yeah, if you look on your each individual post, there's also analytics for each individual post that are super helpful. And you know, if you sit down at the end of the month and you kind of see what was successful, what wasn't, you can put together what kind of content is going to be successful in the future and what people liked and engaged with and reacted with, and then it helps you create a blueprint and a plan on what you want to do going further.
Kiowa, real quick, can you comment on the pros and cons of going to a business account versus not having a business account?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have an answer for that. The analytic tool for business is super helpful. You can't see the same analytics as you can in a personal account. I've gone back and forth with my own personal account. I've gone back and forth between personal and business, and I just actually signed up for the creative account, which goes even further into the creative account actually shows you